Black Desert's Western publisher is revealed. Riot is looking to add new diversity to League of Legends female champions. EA is potentially working on a Sims-inspired free-to-play MMO. Skyforge reveals the Cryomancer class, and much more on this week's episode of Free-to-Play Weekly. Back in June, it was reported Korean developer Pearl Abyss was in talks with an unknown publisher to bring the studio's upcoming sandbox MMO Black Desert to Western regions. Now, Foreign Games review site Staparu has just confirmed publishing duties for the North American and European versions of Black Desert will be handled by Black Desert's current Korean publisher, Daum Communications. As far as we can tell, Black Desert will be Daum's first attempt at publishing a title in the Western market. The company is most famous for being one of South Korea's largest web portals and already acts as the official publisher for other notable titles in South Korea, including SOE's PlanetSide 2. Pearl Abyss has already been shown to have an English client in the works, but the publisher reveal did not come with any additional information regarding Western release dates. Meanwhile, Black Desert's third Korean closed beta test will take place sometime in late August to September. After the closed beta wrap-ups, Pearl Abyss will conduct the Korean open beta test a few months later. Are you the kind of MMO player who enjoys turning enemies into posed popsicle ripe for the shattering? I suppose you enjoy the endless supply of crowd control, burst damage, and the frustrated tears of enemies trying their absolute hardest to move more than 2 feet at a time. If that's the case, you might want to check out Skyforge's newly revealed class, the Cryomancer, who is best described as a mad scientist mixed with a frost mage, the Mr. Freeze of Skyforge's fantasy world. Thanks to Cryomancer's cryogenerator situated on his back, the cold conjurer can pluck water molecules right out of the air and turn an otherwise sunny day into a winter wonderland. Practically every Cryomancer ability possesses some form of crowd control, from rolling over enemies with giant snowballs to trapping them as ice statues in a gigantic icy dome. Even when the action gets too hot, the Cryomancer can quickly jettison themselves backwards, leaving a trail of ice to slow down any attackers in pursuit. Alad's team says players will have full reign over their ability and passive customization, allowing them to focus on dealing damage or just simply making life miserable for enemies through countless crowd control options. Despite the Cryomancer being a ranged caster, the class is quite mobile and can cast its abilities on the go, usually instantly, making for a fair dynamic playstyle which offsets the Cryomancer's low health. The balance between male and female character diversity in video games has been a much talked about subject throughout the course of modern gaming. Males often come in all shapes and sizes, from small portly fellows to the large and lanky. Females, on the other hand, oftentimes fall into the cliched stereotypes of big boobs and an athletic body. Many of our favorite games are guilty of this one-sided diversity, including League of Legends, whose current lineup of female champions leaves ample room for more body-type creativity. However, according to League of Legends producer Omar Kendall, who answered fan questions regarding female diversity at this year's Comic-Con, that's all about to change. As originally reported by Polygon, Kendall mentioned it was something that Riot was paying a lot more attention to now, and said the studio was implementing, quote, new strategies for what our champions look like. These new strategies include adding a new diversity category to champion design, which takes into account the character's body type and body shape. The studio plans on making good on its promise to bring in new diversity among its female heroes, starting with a new champion who's coming out soon, TM. Not only will the addition of a new female champion design bring about greater diversity among League's female roster, game designer Brian Feeney also mentioned it would allow the studio to come up with new silhouettes for heroes based on the new body shapes. These changes in female silhouette design will make it easier for players to identify female champions on the fly, which is more important, making split-second decisions in-game. What type of female character design would you like to see added to the roster? EA, or rather the Maxis branch of EA, is on the lookout for a new senior designer to work on an unannounced title, which may end up being some sort of new free-to-play MMO heavily influenced by Maxis' previous work, which includes the Sim series, Spore, and SimCity. A job posting found on EA's career board mentions the applicant will oversee the creation of innovative new game systems, in which EA calls a unique emerging IP. Specifically, the post mentions the senior designer will work on systems such as gameplay progression, extensive multiplayer gameplay mechanics, in-game economies, technology trees, HD, PC, and mobile and tablet companion application integration, and essentially all other systems in the game. Going a bit further, the job requires the applicant to have prior experience in deeply social multiplayer games, such as MMOs, and must possess the ability to weave free-to-play game mechanics with monetization in simple, natural, respectful ways, i.e., designer monetization that players respect and feel adds a great deal of value for their money. In terms of design, Maxis is looking for someone who has an affinity towards creative and simulation games, listing the studio's titles while also lumping in outside games including Little Big Planet, Minecraft, Disney Infinity, just to name a few. As MMOs take a long time to develop, we most likely won't hear any definitive news on the project for at least several months, if not longer. The Sims 4 is scheduled for release this September, and it's unclear whether EA is looking to make the next entry in the franchise an MMO or simply using Maxis' talent for creating sim games to explore a brand new IP. Maxis has already created an MMO based on The Sims in 2002, with the release of The Sims Online, but the MMO shut down in 2008. A new Orcs Must Die Unchained update hit the game's closed beta servers recently, bringing in an absolute horde of new content aboard the Fortress Siege-infused MOBA. Players who log in will be treated with 2 new heroes, 40 new cards, team matchmaking, and other quality of life improvements. The 2 latest heroes, the Kobold King and Sir Winston, each add an interesting new dynamic to the battlefield. As a former paladin, he now wields the power of dark magic, inspiring fear in nearby enemies while sapping them of their strength and using it to heal his allies. The Kobold King has a more obvious synergy as he is best played in conjunction with other Kobold minion waves. His presence allows him to turn the little rodents from ankle biters to full-on death machines, while any nearby kobold deaths increase his own damage and movement speed. With the introduction of this patch, Robot Entertainment wiped all player accounts and added 40 new cards to the available pool, including new traps, such as the rapid firewall blades, and more than a dozen new types of minion waves to send forth. Speaking of cards, players can now also use the new card grinder to grind unused cards into gibs, used to purchase new cards in the GIB store. Team matchmaking, improved performance over Wi-Fi, and match reward changes round out the most notable additions in this patch. If you're looking to score a beta key, be sure to keep your eyes on our giveaway section at MMOBomb.com, as we've been known to give out keys from time to time. In other League of Legends news, Riot Games' skill for creating in-house cinematics is surging to near Blizzard level of fidelity with the release of the new cinematic trailer for League called A New Dawn. The trailer comes in at just under 6.5 minutes long and features a full cast of heroes performing many of their iconic moves in glorious CGI. In comparison to previous League cinematics, there's an awful lot of blood this time around, mostly thanks to Darius and Rengar, who love carving up their opponents. But perhaps most impressive was the appearance of Nautilus, who really solidified just how big of a badass underwater explorer he really is. A companion behind-the-scenes video goes into the nitty-gritty of how Riot brought each character's persona to life through a combination of art, music, and sound effects. When you play the game, you get a much smaller piece of this broader story we want to tell, said animator Riot Silverfox Davies. He went on to say, "We want players to come away with a stronger connection to the characters they play as. Seeing them in cinematic form gives you a lot more attachment to the character." Did you enjoy the cinematic? Let us know what you thought of it in the comments below. And the game of the week is Unturned. Unturned is a first-person survival FPS in which players must scavenge for supplies as they traverse a zombie-filled environment. Players may choose to play offline by themselves or join others on community-hosted servers in either PvE only or PvP game modes. Players entering the world of Unturned will find themselves fighting off rogue players, zombies, and the elements. In order to survive, players will need to secure a source of food and water to stave off dehydration, famine, and sickness, which will ultimately lead to their character's permanent demise. To do this, players will need to grow their own food sources and set up a sustainable camp to protect their supplies from other invading players. Venturing into abandoned areas, including towns, farms, and military bases, players will find items needed to craft fortifications and fend off attacks from encroaching enemies with makeshift traps. As players take out wandering zombies using a combination of ranged and melee weapons, they'll gain experience which can be used to increase special traits which boosts the player's affinity in certain areas including survival, scavenging, stamina, and marksmanship. So, if you're looking for a free-to-play alternative to DayZ and don't mind the game's more simplistic art style, then be sure to check out Unturned. And that's going to be all on this week's episode of Free-to-Play Weekly. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment in the comment section below. And be sure to head over to MMOBomb.com for more free-to-play action. Until next time, Natsumii out.